everyone. Thanks for joining us with Chat with the Chair. I'm Caryl Coronis, CFMA's 2024-25 Chair, and we're so happy to have with us today Scott Blair, the Editor-in-Chief of ENR. ENR stands for Engineering News Record, and they have been a great partner to CFMA, and we're so happy to welcome him here today. Welcome, Scott. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and the history of ENR?
Sure. And thanks so much for having me. It's a delight to be able to be here and talk with your members. I've been in the construction industry and media for a couple of decades now, since 1997. And I came from other types of media, film, radio, daily, newspapers, weekly business publications. But I came over to one of our regional publications, which back then was called Southwest Contractor, and I live in Phoenix, and slowly worked my way into the ENR family. And now, as you mentioned, I lead the editorial team as editor-in-chief, and we have about 20 editors currently, plus a whole host of freelancers and contributors all around the world, really, that bring us all of the news that is important for your members and the rest of the construction industry to do their jobs more efficiently, more safely, and more equitably. So that's been our mission over the years, and those years are long. We are celebrating 150 years this year, and so just a very brief history of ENR. We started back in 1874 as a magazine called Engineer and Surveyor. And it only took a year. It was renamed Engineering News, and then it was published by the Hill Publishing Company. And then a couple of years later, another magazine started that eventually became Engineering Record, and that was published by the McGraw Publishing Company. And then in the early 1900s, like a Reese's peanut butter cup, it was 1917. Two great taste better together, or great together. So they merged, the McGraw and Hill merged their publishing companies, and it became the McGraw-Hill Companies, which might ring a bell with some of your members that have been around for a long time, because they were a huge publisher. They owned S&P 500 and J.D. Power and Associates and us. And so that's, they merged the two magazines together. Engineering News and Engineering Record became Engineering News -Record. That's why there's a hyphen in our full name. So, but these days we just shorten it to ENR to make it simpler.
Yeah,
so much of our we have a ton of content that is from those early days that have all been digitized by different projects that Google and others have done. So you can actually go back and see these old magazines and read them online from the 1800s. And then we're also doing a series in our print magazine and online this entire year. So we're going back and looking at important historical moments from our magazine through the lens of engineering, such as World War II and the Reconstruction and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very interesting. I remember a colleague who is a little bit on the older side has told me that he used to remember the days when he would just wait to see his ENR, his Engineering News Record publication come in, because it had so much good content, so much that you get now digitally, but back then you had to get everything by print. So I think it's a great evolutionary story. In what ways have you used technologies and looked at customer needs in terms of this evolution of ENR?
Well, believe it or not, people still are demanding print. So we have not abandoned print at all. In fact, we print every other week. So we still have a very robust print product. But of course, that entire print magazine is also as a digital edition on our website, which is enr.com. In addition to all the individual stories that we write, both in print and just every day, we have, like 5, 6, 7 news stories every day that go live on our website every day. And as we started our website back in the mid 90s, and I did a presentation where I took some screenshots of our very first websites, which look like AOL online, like from hell. But it very quickly evolved into a very robust website. And I was impressed at how quickly, because it was a couple years before I joined the family that all started. But you can see all of our content going back to the early 2000s on our own website, and then others on the Wayback Internet Machine. We're getting, as we are right now, into podcasts quite a bit. I do a lot of video project tours and other types of videos for ENR. So we have a pretty robust video channel on enr.com/videos. And then we also have a YouTube channel where you can follow those. We do, webinars. We also have a ton of live events as well that we can talk about later. That is such a good opportunity to meet the key players in the industry and thought leaders, and also for us to meet you. So.
Yeah, great. I've had the pleasure of interacting with ENR at several locations and events. So I know we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but it's definitely a delight. And you bring a whole lot to the construction ecosystem in terms of ranking, news, and just a lot of things that you put out there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're the largest industry in the world. I mean, so like to write about construction is to write about so many different things. We're touching politics and how to run a business, and financials, and workforce development, and safety, and technology. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So we're really out there covering all of that, and also talking with the industry to find out what your needs are as far as information. But right now, all of the ENR editors, and for quite a while, are all journalists first, because we put great importance on finding and delivering the news in a way that everyone in the industry can understand, because we're not just writing for engineers, we're not just writing for contractors, we're writing for a pretty broad base of industry professionals. So, but we always try to find an angle that is specific for our audience as opposed to the mainstream media. So the Baltimore Bridge collapse, for example, is a good example of that, where, we really focused on the demolition efforts and the Corps' plan. And of course, we'll continue to follow that as the bridge is designed and built, hopefully on a fast track. And, we also have a host of industry experts that we look to for a lot of our coverage. And we have our cost data reports, our rankings, our regional editions, viewpoints. I mean, we just have so many different types of content that we hope serves our readers and your members well.
Yeah, I know CFMA really appreciates the opportunity to contribute in some of the financial and economic topics that you cover. So definitely of interest to us, and we enjoy just being a part of the overall construction ecosystem. And you mentioned rankings, and I know that that's important, and we all talk about, oh, are you in the top 10 and the top 5 and things like that. So tell us a little bit more about the rankings that you have and what significance you see in that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing rankings for 50 plus years, so we have this incredible history to draw upon, and a lot of that data is available on our website if you want to compare and contrast, what our rankings look like today versus 2 decades ago. And the important thing to note is these, we're not just going out and scrubbing publicly available information for these rankings. These are arduously collected data points that we get directly from the companies in the construction industry, many of whom are private. So this information is not available anywhere else. So when you see the top, 500 design firms or the top 400 contractors, you're getting an insight into all of those companies and how they, relate to one another, not just in the rankings, which are done by revenue, typically, but also by the analysis that we provide, and also a lot of interviews with all of the top executives from those companies. Some of our the articles that go along with the rankings are like, 10, 15, 20 pages long, packed with all of these insights from executives and sub rankings and other data points that we really think are valuable to the industry. And we have, I don't know, something like 18 or 19 national and international rankings that rank everything from CMs and PMs to contractors to, to subcontractors, specialty contractors, and engineers and architects. But all of our regional editions also have rankings too. So we're ranking the biggest contractors in Baltimore, or, the Mid-Atlantic, or in Florida. So, we have just a very robust host of rankings that we hope that your members will, participate in, because the participants get a value in it too. I mean, it's, from free publicity to, getting, having your clients, potential clients, see your impact in the construction industry is very important. So.
Yeah, I know that it also really helps to elevate the industry in a lot of ways, because there's that friendly competition that also goes on to see who's maybe surpassing somebody else. And so I think it's just a great insight, like you say, and it's
Yeah.
something that we really rely on you guys to show us, and look forward to getting that information when it comes out. I know another thing that you guys do is the cost index and the confidence ratings. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so every week we have a different construction economics profile of that, spotlights different materials, material costs, labor costs, that kind of thing. So and this is important because, as we saw after the pandemic, like there's the volatility in the supply chain and in materials costs. Like we're had significant impacts on businesses around the world. So we look at building material prices in 20 of major cities throughout the country, and we've done that for decades and decades. You have a historical relationship between today's data and data 30 years ago, and these data points track dozens of materials. I think it's like 59 materials in those 20 cities, like lumber and masonry and pipe and so on. And then we have other cost data indexes that tie that to labor costs as well. So that's a critical component. And we have cost reporters that check these prices with suppliers in those markets. So that's kind of how that all comes about. And I'm sure your members and big owners and other entities use the data for before they put projects out to bid, or contractors use it for estimating. So it's very useful. And you mentioned the confidence index, which we're delighted that your association participates in that, which runs 4 times a year. So we do a quarterly cost report, which includes the confidence index. And it's basically a survey of executives looking at short-term 3 to 6 months, and then long-term 12 to 18 months. And are they confident or not about those upcoming timeframes? And then just to highlight, the most recent results from our Q2 cost report, it went down to 46, which below 50 is kind of not confident, and above 50 it was 52 in the first quarter, so it went down a bit. And contractors were less confident than designers, which surprised me a little bit, because the AIA's index doesn't show, for billings, has been kind of down the last couple of times that they've given results. And then the Midwest was more confident, and the Pacific Coast was less confident. And we also publish your confidence index survey as well, which I think is key, because having multiple studies looking at something similar gives you a much clearer picture than just an isolated study on its own. And
Yeah.
results are pretty similar, I think, right?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to look at the convergence of those two things, and to see
Yeah.
like really, really where we are. And I know that the price index, the cost index, really affected the industry, especially during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and the availability of supplies and materials. I mean, just a great topic to look at, and having the information that you provide, it's a great service to the industry. So definitely useful looking at all of those trends, and seeing what ENR has to add in that respect. One of the other things I know, even though we are financial professionals in the construction industry, we love to see the things that we actually physically make. And I've been in the bridge building industry and also landscaping and all kinds of things that are really just very visible to us. So one of the things that I really enjoy doing is going to your best projects event that you have in New York. I went earlier this year, and it's just a great event showcasing the projects. And so, we can be very proud to be in the construction industry. So tell us a little bit about that, how those projects are chosen, and maybe some of the highlights that you're seeing right now or saw earlier this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge undertaking, I have to say. We've been doing it about 25 years. Starts with all of our regional editions. So we have 12 best projects events that around the country, and so we gear the entry process to those regions. So we get about 800 entries total throughout the country, and we pick, dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe even more than 100 once you add up all the regions of industry judges, experts such as yourself, who will look at all of the entries and evaluate them in a pretty painstaking on 4 criteria: safety, innovation, teamwork, and quality and of the design and the construction are the key points that we look at. And they evaluate 20 different categories. You mentioned 2 of them, because we have transportation, bridge, and then we also have landscape and a category for landscape and a bunch of other things as well. And the judges pick the winners. They get celebrated at the regional events, and then all of those winners get thrown into another group again, and we have a whole different group of judges that pick the national winners in each of those categories from among the regional winners. And then we have a completely separate competition for the rest of the world as well, our global best projects competition, which is really a lot of fun because you get a window into projects you just normally don't see when they're under construction in China and Turkey and in Africa and just everywhere around the world. One of the more enjoyable contests that to participate in and judge, because it's really interesting to keep up on what's going on around the world, and we judge that very similarly. And one thing of note of all our contests is we don't allow any project to move forward if it had a fatality. So any construction related fatality is just an automatic no-go. We just feel that is such a critical component in project success, and it's hard to celebrate a project when there's been a loss of life. So that is one caveat. In addition, we have all these other awards too. We have our top young professionals that we pick every year in each region, and then those again all get merged together, and we pick a national class of 20 that is profiled in ENR every year. We have a legacy award for people that have made a huge impact in the industry over decades. We have the event that you attended, which was our national best projects, but also our top 25 newsmakers and award of excellence, which celebrates people that have made a difference in the construction industry over the last year. And the neat thing about that one is you can't enter it. You have to be written about in ENR or be on a podcast or a video or some kind of media in ENR editorial. And then we actually, the editors, meet over and over again, hour after hour for months and weigh the merits of each of the nominees and then arrive at the top 25. So.
Yeah, really, really some amazing stuff. I know the last one just really showcased the ability when needed to build quickly to get people back in good living conditions very quickly. Amazing what can be done when these brilliant minds are put together. So love that showcase. Now let's move on to the trends and risks that you're seeing within
Sure.
construction. I know AI is a huge topic, generative content is a huge topic. What are you seeing in terms of trends and risks that are associated with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've had so much coverage on AI over the years in E&R and at our live events. We have a Future Tech conference that the last couple of years, almost every panel or keynote presenter touched on AI in at least one form or another. My kind of summation of everything is, that it's best considered another tool in your toolbox that you have, and
Mhm.
as it becomes more ubiquitous, it's going to become more like something like building information modeling, for example, or it's going to be integrated into other existing workflows that we have in the construction industry, which I think is a good thing. And one of its current high points, I would say, are in automating, repetitive tasks and
Mhm.
mundane tasks. That's basically what we started using computers for, like in the 90s or 80s or whatever. So it's a very similar like progression, I think, that it will enter into our jobs and our home lives and every other aspect of our lives. The most successful uses we've seen lately are where they're integrated with human teams or human,
Mhm.
like human partners. So whether that's, that they're augmenting a human teams, or whether they're, maybe their processes are being shadowed by humans just for verification purposes. Because there's still, as I'm sure you and your members know, there's a lot of hallucinations, AI hallucinations. There's a lot of bad information that comes out. We've all seen the headlines lately from Google. Um, a lot of stuff like drone flights, and then
Mhm.
we start to see more on the job site robots, which we actually have a feature story coming up next month on job site robots and their use. So be sure to read that, and you'll hear more about this. But those are great ways to use AI for pathfinding, avoiding pitfalls, and just taking the human out of navigation, really. And then, as you mentioned, generative design is a huge, I think, opportunity for the use of AI, whether it's doing conceptual designs, taking off of an initial human design, or sometimes they're even using AI to do a new design based on the learning that AI has done from the company's previous designs. And we actually have a feature story that ran a month or two ago on generative design in the design industry, and how it's maybe impacting billable hours. So if you're interested in any of that, take a look back at that story. One of the people quoted in the story, referred to AI doing generative design as like an overeager intern, which I thought was a cool like analogy, because it's like taking
Mhm.
ideas that and assimilating them without giving, sometimes without crediting where those ideas came from,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
So like the intern is eager, but you can't 100% trust the final results. But it can still save you a ton of time, even if you have to verify those results. So, and then of
Yeah,
course, yeah,
I really like that analogy of an overeager intern. And so that would be a risk, right? If it goes and just is way overboard and having to maybe dial it back a little bit and
yeah.
introduce that human touch. I
And then
like
there's, predictive and problem solving uses in, estimating and
that.
figuring out
Mhm.
supply chains. It just, uh, but a key component of all of this, and I wouldn't I would call it a risk prevention, is that, if you're going to try to utilize AI, you better have your data management figured out first,
Right.
because it's going to rely on data. And if your data is a mess, or in 15 unreadable or formats that are unreadable between each other, that's not going to be a good learning foundation for the AI.
Well,
So
that's a great point, and that is one that I think construction companies and just companies in general really suffer from, because a lot of times we don't have our data right. So I appreciate that tip. We can work on that even before we progress anymore with the AI. And I know that there are a lot of things with safety and other things that
Yep.
it's bringing in. So a lot of tools, like you said, that are going to be available in our toolbox. So I want to move on a little bit to the case, the Loper Bright case. Can you tell us a little bit about that Supreme Court case?
Yeah, so this was I think a few weeks ago, and you can go back and read our coverage on our website, enr.com. But the Supreme Court overturned a ruling from, I think it was the 60s, if I remember correctly, um, basically reeling back federal agencies' ability to to extrapolate and develop in regulation based on their like a broader interpretation of legislation. So like Congress passes a law, and then the federal agencies set policy interpreting that law.
Mhm.
But like some people felt that federal agencies were way overreaching, and so that's what the Supreme Court ruled on. So the impacts of the ruling vary depending on your perspective. So some
Mhm.
people think that that is a good thing. It'll prevent agency overreach, and others think that it's going to result in this flood of lawsuits that it's going to make this like crazy regulatory uncertainty in projects. And this is key for so many different projects, from wetlands protection to there's just so many different aspects that this touches on. So will it have a stifling effect on their ability to enforce regulation? We don't really know yet. But maybe the silver lining in all this, no matter what perspective you're in or that you're coming to it from, is that basically when laws are passed, legislation needs to be written in clear, very concise ways that everyone can understand, and maybe we'll get better legislation out of this that is clear and that isn't open to interpretation. So who knows?
Yeah, it's very interesting because those of us in the finance end of it, we see that happen a lot with tax legislation, for example.
Yeah,
It's like, the law is passed, but then there are a lot of ways to interpret it. And this issue of the regulations and the administrative branch, sort of maybe overarching into some things that may be legislative, it's an age-old argument, really, so it's
yeah,
not new, but I know that this particular case may have some ramifications, and we'll look at it moving forward. So
yeah.
very interesting.
And some of the other trends you can read about in our pages this year, we've been writing a lot about decarbonization in the construction industry and in projects,
Mhm,
whether
mhm.
it's in materials or in the design phase or construction. So that's kind of like the whole sustainability movement has moved
Yes.
mostly just to decarbonization. Um, and well, like we mentioned before, the whole data management thing, not just for AI, but just for, collaborating with your other project team members, is such a key element in project success right now. And all of the federal funding, we've been writing about IIJA and IRA and the CHIPS Act like crazy over the last couple of years, and that will continue, especially as the funding is getting to the project level now. So yeah, so we've had a lot of coverage also on energy, and whether it's power grid optimization or getting renewables onto the grid, and offshore wind we've been writing about quite a bit. That's been in the news. So yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of trends to watch.
Yeah, very interesting. I know very recently, there have been a lot of summits in terms of sustainability, in terms of equipment usage also
Mhm.
for construction companies. So this is definitely something that's in the forefront, and I think will to remain in the forefront, especially as we move to do business with different sectors. So
Yeah.
very important for all of us just to keep our hands on the pulse of that. So tell me a little bit about the process of a company or a project being recognized by ENR and ways that those of us in the industry may be able to propose some things that we think might be a good idea to look at.
Yeah. Uh, I would say the first step is, take a look at ENR, ENR.com or print magazine, and, take a look at the type of coverage that we do, if you aren't familiar already. But then, if you do have a story idea, let's say you have a project that you think is very innovative, you can find all of the editors and what we specialize in on enr.com/contact us. And you can reach out to an editor that might cover your region, or if you work in transportation, you can contact our transportation editor, Eileen Cho, for example. So, we have like I said, a lot of different editors and contributors that you can interact with. We'd love to get story pitches that give a little insight into why you think the project is noteworthy. And that usually is that you're doing something, innovative or interesting. It doesn't have to be like a world first, but that maybe the first for California or the first for Oklahoma or whatever, it's fine. Or you're doing something that's of interest in the means and methods of construction or of design or safety. I mean, all of those aspects, we really want to just highlight the components of whatever we're reporting on that will help our readers do their jobs better and lift the entire industry up, make it more productive, make it more safe, all the values that we all share and want to share information about. We also get pitches on technology a lot. We have every multiple stories every week on construction technology. We also have the opportunity for people with a strong opinion about a topic to do a viewpoint in our magazine. So that's always a good way to participate. I would advise that, to have a strong opinion and be concise and short. That's always a good way to vote. If you're interested in that, we can put you in touch with our viewpoint editor, Richard Corman, and he can guide you through the process for that. And then, as you mentioned before, maybe the best way is to meet us at one of our events and, like interact with the editors. And then, of course, on social media, you can interact with us as well. You can interact with us virtually or just pick up the phone if you're old fashioned. I take text messages too.
Okay, so there are a lot of ways to
Yeah.
interact. And I think, like you mentioned, just building up the entire industry, we all have things that are probably interesting to others. So that's great.
Yeah.
So if somebody just tell us, I know I wasn't familiar with the fact that you guys had regional editions because I only get the national edition. So tell me a little bit about that, and then also about if somebody isn't subscribed and is interested in subscribing, what the process of that is.
Sure. Yeah, our regional editions, some of those are older than, some of the big magazines in the US. I mean, the one I started at, Southwest Contractor, which is now ENR Southwest, actually started in the early 1930s. So I have issues from that lying around
Wow.
somewhere in my garage, actually. And those regional editions mirror the national one, but really gives our readers who really crave regional news. We've seen it time and again in our readers surveys that they really want news from their region in addition to the national news and worldwide news as well. So we do like pretty in-depth project stories specific to each region. We examine the construction data from specific cities, like we'll cover, Sacramento, for example, and dive into how each construction market sector is doing in that city over a number of years and what the trend is. So that can be very insightful. We also do, as I mentioned earlier, regional rankings. And then from those rankings, we choose regional firms of the year. So we'll have a contractor of the year in Midwest and Southeast and all the other regions. So that's always a nice way to highlight companies that are doing well based on their success in the marketplace, on their sustainability on their workforce, their contribution to charities and all that kind of stuff. That's some of the points that we look at to pick those firms. And then for people that want to subscribe, I mean, just go to ENR.com. In the top right corner, there's a big red subscribe button that you can click on, and you can do print, you can do digital, you can do digital edition, you can just get access to our website. Or any combination thereof. We, to fund all of this content that you can't get anywhere else, we do ask that people visiting our website do subscribe after a couple of stories a month that you can see for free, similar to how other news organizations do it. But if you do become a member, we call our subscribers members, and you get a host of benefits. You get discounts on our events, you get discounts on some of the contest entries that charge entry fees. So you get a lot of benefits by being a member. For free, you can subscribe to a lot of our newsletters. So even though you said you don't get the print regional edition, you can subscribe to the print regional newsletter for free.
Awesome.
On our website. So that's a good resource. You'll also see a lot of our content on social media. So if you follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram, et cetera, you'll get a lot of our content through that. And then definitely participate in all of those rankings and contests that we talked about. And then one other thing we didn't talk about yet is, we mentioned events, live events, but we also look for experts to be on panels or give keynote presentations or a breakout workshop for all of those events. And that's a great way to get involved with us. And we put out a public call for speakers for each event, 6 months in advance or so. And that's a really wonderful way to get involved, and you get to go to the event. So for free, so, if you're picked, that is.
So yeah, that sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
I know here in Houston, we are getting ready to participate as CFMA in the NAWIC conference. And I know that you guys participate and really encourage women in construction as well. So tell us about some of your upcoming events. I'm sure you have some exciting things coming up.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we always have a host of events that we hold. So on September 16th, we'll be holding our New York and New Jersey Infrastructure Forum, and we'll have a host of leaders from some of the largest agencies that are impacting the construction industry in the New York area, from the Port Authority to the Army Corps of Engineers. We have the Brigadier General coming to speak. We have Amtrak that will be speaking. The Gateway program, the tunnel underneath the Hudson is one of the topics. So I think it's a really valuable place to not just learn about all of the massive upcoming construction programs and opportunities, but also to network really face to face with all of these folks. And then we also have an LA Infrastructure Forum that we do in partnership with Infrastructure LA, a group of agencies and municipalities, including Metro and LA County and many others. And that one is on November 18th in Los Angeles. So that's going to highlight, resiliency. The Olympics are coming up in LA. Everyone's watching Olympics now. I don't know when this airs, but maybe the Olympics will be over by then. But LA is like trying to do a zero new, not building new facilities, but using their time to upgrade their infrastructure, which is, I think, really cool. So there's going to be a lot of talk at the forum about all those infrastructure plans and upgrades. And then all of our regional best projects events are coming up. So they start in LA on October 15th. And then the last one is December 17th in Seattle. So there's 12 of those. So watch for one near you. Even if you're not winning a project, like you said, it's fun to see the winners and glean ideas from that, but also obviously networking. And then our Groundbreaking Women in Construction conference is now, I think, entering its 22nd year.
Wow.
And we gather almost 1,000 women and some men, and myself included, to exchange ideas about inclusion and success in the industry and personal and development of your company. So it's really valuable from every aspect of the construction industry, I think, whether you're an accountant or you're in the field. And then the good news is we're adding one on the East Coast on February 24th and 25th in New York City. And then we'll be holding the one in San Diego in June. And then finally, Future Tech will be in May in San Francisco, May of 2025. So.
Wow. I mean, it's just amazing how many things that you have going on. I actually attended the Olympics in, I think it was 1984 in LA. And so I'm glad to hear that they're repurposing a lot of the things. We always really like to see that if those things are built, repurposing them, getting the infrastructure better. I mean, it's just a win-win. And right now, having watched some of the Olympics coverage, it's really exciting that it's going to be in the US again. So, well, just hearing about everything that ENR does, it's just amazing. You provide so many resources for the construction industry, and CFMA is so proud to be a part of the ENR journey. And so we appreciate you being on here and giving some of your time. You have any last few words you'd like to say?
No, I just want to thank you so much, Caryl, for having me on as a guest and letting me talk with your viewers and listeners about ENR. And we hope to see you, like I said, on our website or at an event, or just shoot us an email or say hi on social media.
Great. I am sure you will see a lot of participation, and thanks again. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Bye.